and share. I've invited a friend of mine to come and share with us today, all the way from Atlanta. And so I'd like to hear what he has to say. So, Mike G, come on in.
Thanks, Bridget. My name is Mike G. I'm an alcoholic and various other things. And I appreciate you asking me to do this. And I guess I'll spin a yarn for about 25 minutes or so and see what happens. Don't know if it'll help anyone. It'll certainly help me. That's why I'm doing it. So I got sober this last time, January 18th, 1988. And this last time was different than the first couple of times. I guess I could call them times. They were sort of times. They were just things that I sort of had to do either from the Navy or, losing a job, desperation, that kind of thing. I checked out AA in the early 80s and I liked what I heard. And, but I was pretty young and I was like, I think I got a few good runs in me. Maybe I'll be back, hopefully. And luckily, I did end up back after about 5 more years of just, running and gunning. And in that time, I messed up college a couple times. I joined the Navy and got kicked out of the Navy. I went to Israel. I got shot. A bunch of stuff happened. And, some of it was good. Actually, probably a lot of it was good. But the theme that was going on was that I think that, the solution that I chose to as the salve for my woundedness wasn't working anymore. It worked for, I don't know, maybe a few months, probably. And then it didn't work for a long time. But just to start off a bit earlier than that, I was a sensitive child. I was adopted. I look at my adoption as a good thing because it means I'm not related to the people that I grew up with, who were not very interesting to me. But we're good folks for the most part. No alcoholism, a little bit of I don't know, I guess I'd call it rageaholicism. Walking on eggshells about whether dad would be angry or not, when he came home from work or that kind of a thing. I think there was an element of fear that was just sort of, I'm not sure. But at any rate, I grew up kind of thinking that everybody had some sort of secret and I didn't. And everyone knew how to do stuff and I didn't. And it was kind of a mystery to me. And, regular stuff, getting bullied a little bit, bullying a little bit, trying out, different things and smoking cigarettes and, just typical stuff growing up, suburban, Buffalo. I grew up in Buffalo, Jewish, sorta, pretty much. And, but introspective, always introspective and seeking. I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to be a good boy. That was really the deal. And so I had this thing where I was, doing the right thing and being a good boy. And, firstborn child, hero child in the child order model thing. And I had a sister. She died recently, last year, of ovarian cancer, a couple years younger than me, also adopted. And she was the one that was partying first. As a matter of fact, I was the last person that I kind of knew, mostly, out of cousins and everybody else that did it, because I wanted to be a good boy. But then sometime I think I was pissed off at my dad or some kind of a thing where I look back on it now and I say, being good wasn't getting me anything maybe. And so I went to the dark side. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but kind of feels that way. And it was marijuana first. And because I had tried beer a couple of times with the guys on a Friday night, one or two between four of us, six a pack or whatever. It was like, nothing happening. I think I had a bunch of wine at a bar mitzvah one time, little tipsy, but it wasn't the answer to my problems. But when I smoked dope, it was like, yeah, this is good. This is good. And like a lot of things that I get into it really heavily, and I want to turn all my friends onto it. And so the last year or two of high school, I really changed a lot, starting to take naps in the afternoon, hanging out with, different folks than I used to hang out with and all that. And yeah, I mean, pretty much everything I did was sort of mediocre after that, but eventually the alcohol took hold because it was just, legal and plentiful, and it wasn't such a big thing at first, but then it just sort of became a bigger thing and a habit that I got into. And then it was my mistress for a while. And so when I finally got sober, I think I had a breakup at that time, and I was desperate in the sense that the alcohol wasn't working to assuage the pain. So this time I got in it, and I immersed myself in it. I did it in a totally different way. I had done it like sort of a year earlier than that, after getting kicked out of the Navy for about 2 months. but it was like a weekly meeting, maybe 2 meetings a week or something like that. And I just wasn't all in. But at the same time, I was just sort of, I don't know, maybe waiting for something to happen. But then I met a girl, and then, I didn't know how to be, intimate without alcohol, So anyway, when I got it all in, I was hanging out with the winners. I was going to the meetings before the meetings and after the meetings, and to the diners, hanging out with people, playing music, and it was great. I jumped into the steps pretty soon. I got a sponsor, and did it in a traditional fashion, and it worked for me. And then over a period of 20 or 30 years, there's been like a lot of changes. The way that my program has worked and not worked. At first I thought that there was like, because I mean, that's what everyone said. At least that was what I heard. There's the program. Here's the program. This is the box. Work it. It's like right in the big book. There's all the words, the black words, not the white spaces and all that. And it was, it was read like the Bible with a concordance and quoted and all that. And I did the Joe and Charlie tapes and all that kind of stuff. And, it was helpful. There's a lot of nuggets in there. There's a lot of great stuff. It wasn't until years later that I started to, get more, I don't know, I guess more expansive in my recovery. Even though the first couple of years I got into Codependence Anonymous as well. I stopped smoking, it was Smokers Anonymous at that point in time. And, I was into anything that had to do with recovery. I was in sort of a new age, sort of hippie, cosmic thing. Went to Unity Church. I also went to a rehab at about a year sober, because all of a sudden all these feelings started coming up, and I didn't know what to do with them. I had worked the steps, and I had, the promises had started to come true for me. I didn't have the desire to drink anymore, and I was changing, but I didn't know how to handle all these emotions. And my sponsor and his sponsor had gone to this place in Montreal that dealt with um, alcoholism, drug addiction, codependency, and a bunch of different stuff in a sort of a 12-step-ish, new age-ish kind of a thing. It was good. It was a boost charge for my recovery. And, a lot of guided meditation and stuff like that, so it was pretty good. And then, and I met a girl in the program. Within a couple of years, we got married, had some kids. She was in the Navy, so we went from Virginia, where I was at that time, to Bermuda, then back to Virginia, then England, then back to Virginia, and then to Atlanta. I've been here about 15 years. And so during that time, there was a bunch of things that happened. Like AA was kind of got stale a little bit. And it was also that I jumping from place to place to place and then going back, and there wasn't many people that I knew anymore. And sometimes I even felt kind of like an outsider, even though in some way there was a sense of coming home to a meeting. I still felt like, in one way, just a little bit of an outsider. But and I became a born again Christian. That happened. That happened for like 15 years. That was pretty interesting. How did that happen? I suspended my disbelief is what happened. And it was explained to me in a Jewish way where I could sort of understand it, as opposed to just throwing John 3:16 at me, as all the folks did when I was picked up hitchhiking. And and so I said, well, either all these folks are totally fucking nuts, or maybe they have something. I don't know. So I gave it a shot, and And then, but the thing is, the more you study that stuff, because I've always been into comparative religions, I've always been into Zen as a philosophy, and all that different kinds of stuff, but I never really subscribed to any of it. But I thought, let's do this. And but here's what I feel is that if you're looking into comparative religious studies and you do it with an open mind, for me, the only conclusion is to become an atheist. If you do it with a confirmation bias, I think you become a good, whatever is the religion that you're, into. But I could see all these different paths to the mountain and all that kind of a thing. And my attitude was like, it's all made up shit. So having come to that conclusion, there was a part of me that said, in AA, it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to get drunk? Oh no. What if I don't have a higher power? How does that work? Because it kind of says you do, and blah, 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 Well, I mean, it says, the way I look at it now is that the Big Book was written in the 30s, and it's mainly Bill's story. And, nobody who had anything to do with that book had more than 4 years of sobriety. So honestly, if any of us actually looked at a book that a bunch of folks with less than 4 years of sobriety put together right now, how much stock would we put in it? It'd be a nice little book, but it wouldn't be the Bible or whatever, the equivalent. So, but it's a great book though. A lot of good nuggets in there. I think it's one of the better self-help books that was written in the 20th century, to be honest with you. But it's not gospel for me. I take what I need and I leave the rest. And what I find is that there's always a bunch of different things that I'm either needing and leaving at any given time. So in sobriety, a lot of events have happened. I've been sober long enough that some shit has happened. I had a child die of suicide when I was 20 years sober. My daughter, Rachel, didn't have to drink. I knew that was going to make it worse. It wouldn't have helped anybody. And, I needed to be there for my wife, Julie, and my son, Zach. And Julie and I got divorced, I guess about 4 years ago. And for a while we were friends with benefits, and we were friends without benefits. And there's been a couple of songs that I wrote that came out of that. And I'm still moving through that, actually. But it's good, but it wasn't something that I had to drink about either. And it actually was we're both good eggs, and we both don't want to hurt each other. And we both knew that where we were at as we were self-actualizing was to continue would have been sort of to hurt each other, without intending to, so it wasn't really good for either of us. So that's how that worked out. And so what I do now, I guess, in how I work this thing is, like I said, I thought that there was a box that you had to work the program and bring the program and fit your life into the program. And but it's like a suit. It was like my bar mitzvah suit, which was fucking red, white, and blue, because it was in 1976. It was red, white, and blue plaid. I have a picture of it. It's insane. And but it fit me then, but it didn't fit me, later. And that's kind of like what my idea of the program and how to work it was initially. I had to evolve from that, but I didn't realize that you could, but I had to. That's what happened. And when I got back into it, and especially when, with the Zoom meetings and the secular meetings I'd been to before Zoom was, just the Atlanta one that's been here for, probably about 10 years, I think. And I've been going to that for several years. But it was really the Zoomiverse that opened things up, and such a diversity of opinion and ideas and thought that has been just phenomenal, boost charging my recovery. So I kind of evolved in this, the way that I look at it now is that my recovery it's bigger than AA. And I've been to some of the other, Smart Recovery, Life Ring and other things. I've checked out all these different ways of doing it. And I'm actually fascinated by all these different ways of doing it, and so there's all these tools that I have now that I bring into whatever life is going on. And there's stuff that I have to heal from, little pieces of trauma here and there. And I'm wired differently than other folks. So, neurodivergence is the thing for me. I used to think that, like it says in the book, you got to be about other people. And like some of the things that it talks about there about the death of ego and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, maybe initially, maybe that's some good stuff that I needed. I needed those sort of guardrails, and maybe a lot of people need them. I don't know. But after a while, I'm like, hold on a second. If I'm constantly fighting my ego, then I'm just like, that's fucking weird. How about having a healthy ego? How about that? How about making a series of esteemable actions so that my self-esteem raises and I feel good about myself, and I don't have to drink anymore. I don't have to do any of that stuff. That's kind of what's been happening. I like the steps, the essence of what is in each of the steps. I love it. Because it's a nicely packaged bunch of stuff that is sort of, the wisdom of the ages of all of the, great religious traditions and stuff like that, it's been around forever, I think that all of the, like, if you look at like the White Bison, principles for each one of those, that's a pretty cool thing. And all the different versions of the steps that are out there. I really love that, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to get into the essence of like, what is each step sort of about? When I do it, what's actually happening, like step 11 is one of my favorites. I don't seek through prayer and meditation, conscious contact with, God as I understand him, and seeking only knowledge of his will for me and the power to carry that out. What I do is I meditate, and I try to maintain conscious contact with myself, reality, and other people. And that keeps me connected. There's something about that. I think that if I had to wrap all the steps up the inventory is good, self-reflection and all that kind of thing, figuring out about my, not character defects, maybe character defaults or behavioral defaults. These are the results of filters and ideas and thoughts and beliefs that I've had all my life. Well, these are like components that can be swapped out, that means it's always possible for me to get better and to be the captain of this ship. And I mean, that's good news for me. And I don't have a sponsor. Well, I have a sponsor, but I haven't called him in a couple of years. But I'm 34 years sober. What the fuck do I need a sponsor for? I mean, I know how to work these things, but I do peer review. That's what I do. I have a handful of friends, that we meet a couple times a week and we check in, and it's not like we have to keep each other accountable, because we're not trying to, pull a fast one over on ourselves or the world. We're really pretty open and honest, and we're just, but it's great to be able to, another perspective of like, and just support, I mean, it's good stuff. That's what keeps me sober, I think. So the essence, I guess, what I wrap it up is about that I had to change. That had to happen. I had to be the person that doesn't drink anymore, that doesn't need to drink anymore, from that person that did and that needed to that person that didn't. And it was just about healing, and the connection, the human connection. I have to practice compassion, because the way I'm wired, I'm not interested in other people that much, not that much. But yet at the same time, I'm like sort of ad hoc interested, ad hoc compassionate. I'm not going to be, sending you Christmas cards or knowing the names of all your kids and stuff like that. But I love to connect in a given moment. That's what I like to do. Connect in a given moment, and that's where I feel my humanity, and your humanity reflects with me, and I feel like, this is okay. This is good. We're going to make it. Fellow travelers. That's the way I look at it. So I guess the last thing I'll end with is on this higher power thing. So even up to a couple of years ago, I was sort of going through the motions of, I never went for that doorknob or whatever kind of stuff. But, I really, it's like the last vestige of the Kool-Aid for me, where I had like, you gotta have a higher, but don't you? I mean, but I'm here to say, no, you don't. I don't have a higher power, because I reject the concept completely. To me, it's Judeo-Christian gobbledygook, which works for some. It worked for me. That's awesome. But if I don't go for it, why am I even trying to? It's like I'm trying to put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack. Let me just place this aside. But what I did for a while, though, I was like, how about, I've heard of people talk about a wider power. I thought that was pretty interesting. Or for a while, I had this thing where, even up to like a couple years ago, that the higher power doesn't have to be static. It can be dynamic. Like the analogy I use is that when my pipes are broken, I call the plumber. The plumber is a higher power to me in that moment. And that, and that's kind of that's pretty good. But I'm still using the word higher power. And I'm like, wait. How about this? Sometimes I need help with shit. How about that? I can't do everything by myself. I need help with a lot of things. That's the essence of what's going on there in those steps, let go and let God. Well, how about just let go and shut the fuck up? Just let go. Okay, I can do that, works for me. So I love looking at this program in new ways. I love hearing other people talk about how they look at it and how they make it work for them, So I guess that's really all I have. to share with you. It's still working for me, so I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep an open mind, keep the beginner's mind as best I can, and looking forward to hearing how everyone else is doing today. So, Mike, alcoholic, thanks again, Bridget, for having me do this thing. I appreciate you, and I love you dearly.